On the contrary, there's a very good word. Am I right, Bert?
Tell him what it is.
Right. It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Welcome to another edition of Pizza Slice Pop Culture, where we talk about some crazy and some not so crazy fan theories. So, one question I've been mulling over in my head for a while is that of one particularly famous nanny, Mary Poppins. Of course, you know she's the magical nanny from the movie of the same name and its sequel that uses magic to make children's lives better.
I am kind, but extremely firm.
At first glance, you might just lump her magic into a category of just Disney magic, but one thing that seems unique about this film is where it stands in the Disney canon. Disney has made many live-action films in its time, that's true, but it is one of the few films that Walt Disney Production Studios has made that incorporates live action and animation, leaving it in a world of magical realism like Pete's Dragon or Song of the South. Even though, we don't talk about that one. For good reason. Now, there have been many theories as to the identity and origin of this mysterious magical nanny, but some in particular stand out because Mary herself seems to fit into some interesting niches. So, what is Mary Poppins? A witch? A time traveler? An alien? I have my own theories. So first off, many people like to say Mary is a witch, or a wizard, depending on your use of the word. She uses magical objects like her umbrella to fly, similar to that of a witch, and her broomstick, and her magic bag, which is very similar to Hermione's magic bag in the Harry Potter series. She's also able to communicate with animals.
Thanks. Anytime.
There are a few theories that Mary Poppins was actually part of the wizarding world of Harry Potter. One especially popular was written by Redditor Bigsy Big, suggesting she worked for the Ministry of Magic, searching for Muggle-born wizards and witches to introduce them to the wizarding world at a young age. However, this theory proves to be problematic with the introduction of the sequel film, Mary Poppins Returns, as Jane and Michael have not, in fact, undergone any wizarding training and, as far as we can tell, have almost completely forgotten about Mary when she returns.
I honestly can't remember why we kept most of this stuff to begin with.
Also, though wizards do tend to live longer than average humans, Mary hasn't seemed to age at all in more than 20 years, and that seems a bit far-fetched.
You seem hardly to have aged at all.
Really? How incredibly rude. One never discusses a woman's age, Mike.
It could be that Mary is investigating children to see if they show any magical abilities, and after they didn't, she decided to erase their memories. But this seems like a flagrant misuse of magical abilities that could easily be exposed by anybody walking by to see their antics. The theory goes on to describe Bert as a squib who is able to use magical items he collected from Diagon Alley, like his broom and some chalk. I find it a little harder to believe, though, that him and all the other chimney sweeps in London seem to also have some connection with Mary and her magic. So, what else is there? Well, there have been other theories thrown around that suggest Mary Poppins is not just a time traveler, but a time lord, in particular the Doctor Who type. Now, this has its merits as well. Her bag is bigger on the inside, suggesting maybe it's a piece of Gilfreyan technology. This would also explain why she appears to Jane and Michael nearly 20 years apart without having aged at all. In the same vein, it also may explain why she looks slightly different in the sequel film. She's simply regenerating as a new form, and as we saw, the Doctor can regenerate into a woman. Her umbrella is just a type of sonic screwdriver, maybe a newer, more advanced model, or perhaps an older, bulkier one. This would also explain why she can understand and speak to animals.
What? I speak horse. He's called Susan. And he wants you to respect his life choices.
Not to mention she does look dashing in a scarf, bow tie, and trench coat. But this becomes more problematic when you add in all the other abilities Mary seems to have. She's able to transport the children into an entirely new dimension, like in the chalk drawing. It also shows some flaws in this theory when the Doctor is usually out fighting aliens on missions to... It doesn't seem likely that she would take some time off saving the universe to fix a broken family. But I do have one more theory on this whole debate that I think is the most plausible. This theory began in circulation around late 2019, and that is that Mary Poppins and Pennywise the Dancing Clown are related. Now hear me out. Pennywise, also known as It from the film It, is a demonic creature that preys on the children of Derry, Maine every 27 years, terrorizing them and eating them. Where this theory gets interesting is that Mary Poppins 2 seems to reappear about every 25 years in this same way. In the film It Chapter 2, Pennywise returns to finish off the Losers Club after he was unable to do so at their first meeting. Similarly, Mary returns to Jane and Michael when they begin to fall into the same trappings as their own parents, neglecting the children and focusing on an adult life over that of their kids. They create a connection with those who have interacted with them in the past. Pennywise feeds off the fear of its victims. But what if Mary Poppins is a creature in the same vein that feeds off of joy instead? She uses her magical abilities to bring joy to children, which in turn gives her her strength and magic. In both stories, It and Mary Poppins, when the children grow up, they lose their memories of the being in question, which is surprising, seeing how fantastical Mary Poppins is and how horrifying Pennywise was. And yet, they only start to remember when the creature returns. The parents in both of these films also seem very unaware of what's going on under their noses. In Derry, the adults just seem to forget about all the children who go missing every year.
He's dead! He's dead! There is nothing we can do! Nothing!
And in Mary's London, it seems like the parents are oblivious to all the magic Mary is doling out. Both of these beings are able to use the imagination of their target to create a more fanciful world as well. Pennywise is able to create an entire world inside the minds of the losers, and Mary creates worlds from chalk painting and a broken bowl. It's also interesting that both Pennywise and Mary Poppins are surprisingly musical. Pennywise introduces himself as
Pennywise the dancing clown
and does his own little jig in multiple occasions during the film. He even gets an entire city block to join in, Thriller style in Chapter 2. This might also explain how Mary might be able to get an entire group of chimney sweeps to pop out and pull out some dance numbers. That's not to say she's manipulating all the sweeps, but maybe she's helping out their improvisational skills a bit, with her own whimsy. Now the creature It isn't exactly Pennywise the clown. He's something a lot more complicated, connecting to the deadlights out millions of miles away in space. But as the story goes, this version of him, the form that terrorizes the citizens of Derry, Maine, came from space in what might be an asteroid 1 million years ago. When the town was built up around this landing site, Pennywise was really only able to affect the area around Derry and the people who grew up there. In the same way, it seems like Mary is limited to the city of London in these two films, but no one else seems to question her strange appearance. It may also just be a coincidence that they're both attracted to kids named Georgie and balloons, but it's clear that both like the imagery of floating.
You'll float too.
There are other supernatural entities in the world of It, like the turtle and Gone. The turtle, for instance, is kind, wise, loving, gentle, and compassionate, and is known as the brother of It. If that doesn't sound like Mary, then I don't know what does. And perhaps Mary is an avatar of one of these more benevolent creatures. She is practically perfect in every way. Whether or not this connection truly exists, we may never ultimately know, and Mary Poppins may always remain a mystery. But in the book series, it is said that all infants have magical powers. Mary is just the one who retained these powers into adulthood. That may be an oversimplified answer to the myriad of magical powers Mary seems to have. But maybe that's the best thing for it. Maybe simplicity is the best answer. In an interview, Emily Blunt was speaking about her role as Mary, and she says, "I think Mary is a superhuman, because I think underneath all the completely fantastical exterior, there is somebody of great humanity, who's really coming in to heal and fix you and help you." Maybe that's the important lesson we need to learn here. The lesson that anyone can hold the magic to be kind and take care of others. Let me know what you think. Post in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of Pizza Slice Pop Culture.